What's going on, everybody? Ellie here. Lincoln Financial Field, the site of the Eagles' amazing 27-24 win over the Giants. I've been on the beat for 5 years now. I was here at the Snow Bowl game. I mean, I've seen some pretty amazing wins. This is one of those games where when I'm 50 and 60 and I'm talking to my kids, I'll be able to say I was there. The Eagles win today on an amazing 61-yard field goal by kicker Jake Eliot, end the Giants season, improve their record from 2-2-1. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. It was crazy, and it's amazing the momentum shift in even the press box from the feeling you got in the stadium from before the kick to after.
Yeah, Elliot, that fourth quarter, it really felt like the Eagles were trying to give the game away to the Giants. You had the Zach Ertz fumble. You had the 14 unanswered points by the Giants. Then all of a sudden, Carson Wentz puts together a nice drive. He's 3 of 7, moves the ball down the field. The Eagles tie it up. They get the ball back. And, of course, it all sets up another big drive by Wentz. Alshon Jeffrey makes that big catch along the sideline. Next thing you know, Jake Elliott's lining up for a 61-yard field goal when you're thinking, okay, if he misses this, it's no big deal. You go to overtime. You have the home crowd at your back. And then, bang, he hits a 61-yard field goal, sets the Eagles franchise record. And you said it. This is one of those games that you're going to remember 10, 20, 30 years down the line, particularly if it winds up being a springboard game for the Eagles. You can say that you were there, you covered the game, that Eliot made that 61-yard game winner.
And the amazing thing is, this is a team last year we saw lose a ton of close games. As our editor, Kevin Manahan, tweeted to me this week, Wentz is 1-7 in games that were decided by 7 points or less. So they did not win a lot of close games last year. This looked like it was going to be another one of those games. They get up early. They're not dominating, but it didn't feel like the Giants had a real chance to win this game. The Eagles go up, I believe it was 14-0. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're losing. They have no momentum whatsoever. I didn't think Wentz played good at all. I thought this was one of the few games where if they would have lost, you could point to, okay, Wentz is the reason they lost. I thought he was terrible, even on the game-tying touchdown drive. And even the game-tying field goal, or game-winning field goal, I didn't think he was that great. He had the very nice throw to Alshon, but outside of that, I thought it was a very rough game for him. So for the Eagles to win that game with the way they played, with the lack of, I thought they had a lot of drops. Wentz didn't play well. They did get the running game going, but all the injuries they had, for them to win that game against the Giants, against a team that really needed it, was incredibly impressive to me.
Yeah, I thought that Wentz in the fourth quarter really showed me something because he hadn't had that game-winning drive. He hadn't had that game-winning drive where he put the offense on his back and led them down the field. And he did it twice. He did it to tie the game, and he did it again to set up the game-winning field goal. So I thought that was kind of a defining moment for Carson Wentz. And that throw to Alshon wasn't necessarily an easy throw to make. It was a sideline route that Carson hasn't been comfortable with of late. He dropped it in there. Alshon made the catch. He stepped out of bounds. Wentz only finished with 176 passing yards today, so not the greatest statistical performance. But you got to remember, this is an NFC East game. And I tried to tell you on Friday during the preview show, this wasn't going to be a blowout. These teams are fairly evenly matched. And today, the Eagles played the best game, the most complete game I think we've seen them play all season, and it was just enough to get the win. Big win, big character win. But, Elliot, I think we need to talk about that kick a little bit here because I spoke to Jalen Mills after the game, and the first thing he said to me was, I knew he was going to make it. And I said, oh, yeah? How do you know that? And he said, well, we've seen him do it in practice. And I guess Doug Peterson sets them up from 55, 60, and 61 and makes him kick it until he makes it. So this is something they've been drilling into Jake Eliot, and a lot of the players had a lot of confidence in him going into that pressure moment.
And Jason Peters said the same thing. He said he knew in his gut that it was going to be good. Everyone was joking about what Jake Elliott's going to do tonight. You get the podium game for a kicker. You don't see that very often. So really unreal. There's the video of Jake Elliott's parents reacting in the stands, which is awesome. So, and again, let's talk about this. Jake Eliot wasn't even their kicker coming into this season. He's the backup that is only playing because Caleb Sturgis got hurt. So obviously this signing, one of the reasons they signed Jake Eliot, the reason he was drafted in the 5th round by the Bengals, he's inconsistent, but he has a very strong leg. Even earlier in the game when he missed on a kick, you could see that he had the distance. So I thought he had a good chance to make it as well, especially just because it seemed like such a crushing way for the Giants to lose. You thought, all right, this is how their season is going to come to an end. But yeah, the reaction in the locker room from the players was crazy. On one hand, they expected it. On the other hand, I think there was a sense of relief that they won this game because had they lost, it would have been a crushing defeat. Let's be honest here.
Right.
I know you said, it didn't end up being a blowout, and it didn't, but they were up 14-0. I mean, they had this game, I thought, pretty much in control.
And then what happened? An untimely turnover with the Zach Ertz fumble, and you gave the Giants some momentum.
Huge mistake by
them. And for 3 quarters, this defense played at a championship level. They had the 4th down stop down along the 1-inch line. They had the 4th down stop in the red zone later in the game. But the Giants, they really took command of this game in the 4th quarter, and I think that it's quite telling that the Eagles' offense was able to gut it out. They were much more balanced today. Corey Clement with his first touchdown run in a huge spot in the 4th quarter of this football game, and ultimately they drive down the field, and Jake Elliott kicks the field goal. And it's funny, Elliott, it's not that he was even the backup on this team. He was signed 2 weeks ago. And you think back to where he was last week in Arrowhead. Andy Reid calls the timeout, ices him right before the kick at the end of the first half, and he misses a 30-yarder. Misses a 52-yarder wide left this afternoon against the Giants. And for a rookie kicker who had been on the practice squad, just signed here 2 weeks ago, that can really mess with a kid's psyche. And to pick himself off the canvas and make that field goal, that's huge. And it's a huge springboard type of a victory for this team. And I'll be really interested to see how they carry themselves this week going on the road against LA. I know that's a different conversation for another day, but the fact that he was able to pick himself up after those 2 misses and make that kick in the biggest of spots, that's a defining moment for him.
Really is. Another thing is, I mean, you talk about this win. What did we talk about all last week? And really the fans talked about it. It was the hot topic on sports radio. The Eagles running game. And today they ran the ball great. 139 rushing yards. They ran it 39 times, which is pretty wild. I think that's probably more than all the running backs had combined coming into this game. LeGarrette Blount had a huge game. Corey Clement comes up late with that touchdown. So Doug really leaned on the running game today, and they got the job done. I mean, with how poor Wentz was playing, they don't win that game if they don't run the ball as well as they did. 193 rushing yards. Now, the thing is, everyone's going to say, oh, Doug learned he should run the ball. Doug was just taking what the Giants give him. I mean, the Giants have a terrible run defense, and I think that's evident by the fact that the Eagles' terrible running game got 193 yards against them. I mean, we'll see if they can do this week in and week out, but at least you saw that when the Eagles needed to run the ball against a bad team, they did have the ability to do it. They controlled the clock today, which obviously helped. 37 minutes to just 22. That was a huge deal. And then the Eagles' defensive line. We can talk about the defense later, but just the running game, I mean, that was obviously huge. How encouraged do you think they should be by this?
Well, I think it's really interesting because I remember, Eliot, you and I sitting in the FedEx Field press box and you saying that the Eagles won this game in spite of Doug Peterson.
Right.
I get that feeling today because
I don't get that feeling, so go ahead.
Let me just outline it here for you real quick. I really didn't love the 4th and 8 going for it in the second quarter right before halftime.
Right.
Punt the ball there. You're at the 49-yard line. Bury the Giants. Don't give them the chance to drive down the field. It worked out because the Giants' offense wasn't able to score on the Eagles' defense down inside the 5-yard line. But you look at that call and you scratch your head. They were running the ball effectively. LeGarrette Blount was averaging 5.5 yards per carry, and he went almost a quarter without a touch. Mm-hmm. You know, up until the final drive of the game, or the second to last drive of the game, it had been since 6 minutes left in the third quarter that LeGarrette Blount touched the ball. So it was working early. They were running the ball early, and it seemed like Doug kind of got away from Blount, got away from the running game. It worked out. The kicker bailed him out. Wentz bailed him out on that drive to end the game, but I wasn't particularly impressed with Doug's play calling outside of finding more balance or his personnel choices, because he didn't seem to be riding the hot hand, which today happened to be LeGarrette Blount.
Yeah, see, to me that just shows that no matter what Doug does, some people are going to be upset about that. I mean, look, 39 running attempts today to 31 passes. So he ran the ball more than he passed it. Everyone was begging him to run the ball.
Oh, believe me, I'm not criticizing him for the lack of balance. It just feels like within the game he lost a little bit of a feel for the hot hand, because when Blount was on the bench, that's when the Giants started to come back.
They still ran the ball effectively, though. I mean, 193 yards. Look, the 4th and 7 or 4th and 8 call, I agree. That was a bad call by Doug. It made no sense. And then it gets made worse by the fact that Wentz gets sacked and you lose 6 yards. You're right, the defense bailed him out. But I liked the decision to go for it earlier on 4th and 1 that I believe ended up leading to a touchdown. Yeah, it ended up the LeGarrette Blount touchdown. And I thought you saw a clear difference today between McAdoo and Doug. I mean, remember, McAdoo is the coach the Eagles wanted. They wanted him over Doug.
Yep.
Today, Doug beats McAdoo, ends McAdoo's season, essentially. I thought McAdoo made a ton more errors. I mean, going forward on 4th down from the 5-inch yard, from 5 inches outside, I know you thought that was a good idea, but look, if they kick that field goal, I mean, I know the game's played out differently, but they maybe the Eagles don't have a chance to kick that game-time field goal, or maybe the game ends up differently. I thought McAdoo made a couple of really poor decisions on going forward on fourth down. Whereas Doug, I agree, look, for maybe 5 or 10 minutes of the game, his play calling wasn't great, and the Giants made that comeback. But he doesn't control the defense, and it was the defense that gave up that long touchdown to Sterling Shepard. Yep. It was Zach Ertz that fumbled the ball.
Yep.
I mean, they made mistakes outside of Doug. If you want to point to, had the Eagles lost this game, which they didn't, and here we are again talking about Doug in a win, but if the Eagles had lost this game, I think you could have pointed to Wentz. I think you could have pointed to Ertz. You could have pointed to Schwartz. And you really could have pointed to the fact that this was an undermanned team. I mean, if you look at when they took their first snap against Washington in Week 1, if you look at their defensive starters, today in that second half, they were without Darby, Hicks, Fletcher Cox, McLeod. I mean, they were really a banged
Oh, no
up
doubt.
unit.
That defense deserves a ton of credit for what it was able to do today on the 2 fourth-down stops and the fact that they came up with some big plays. And you knew that eventually, and it happened on the Brandon Marshall big gain, Rasul Douglas was going to make a mistake. He made a hell of a play on the first interception, but the big gain to Brandon Marshall that set up the Beckham Jr. touchdown, that was a gamble that he lost. That was a rookie mistake. But I thought Douglas played relatively well overall. You knew eventually that Sterling Shepard was going to get open in the middle when you're starting Chris Maragos at safety.
Yeah.
It only happened once. So the defense made a couple of mistakes, but by and large, I thought the defense kept them in the game today. I thought the defense kept them in this football game from start to finish, and if they would have, given the fact that they did win the game, I think that they deserve a lot of the credit for getting the job done.
See, I think if they would have lost this game, I think they won. I think I should say this actually. They won this game despite Carson Wentz. I mean, the one thing I will say, and this is what he does a good job of, he doesn't turn the ball over a ton. And you saw Eli on the other hand. Eli, you can argue played better, but he had those 2 interceptions, and that was the difference in the game. Wentz didn't turn the ball over. I mean, we saw how big that Ertz fumble was. So clearly this Eagles team was not in a position where they were up enough or they were enough of a difference between them and the Giants where they could turn the ball over. So at least Wentz did do a good job taking care of the ball. But, to get back to the defense, I think today was kind of Timmy Jernigan's coming out party. He's played very well the first 2 weeks, but he was without question the best player, in my opinion, on that defense today. I mean, he dominated in the run game and the passing game, and with Fletcher Cox not in there, he still got the job done. So I thought Timmy Jernigan played really well, and every week it seems like what it's going to cost Eagles to re-sign him next offseason goes up.
Yeah, and you think about that second fourth down stop the Eagles made in the red zone, and I believe it was the fourth quarter when McAdoo went for it. It was a bull rush from Tim Jernigan right up the middle. He bulldozed into the pocket, forcing Eli Manning to rush his throw, didn't have a chance to plant his feet, and it landed, haphazardly on the ground in front of Sterling Shepard. If Jernigan doesn't provide that A-gap pressure, that might have been a conversion, and that might have changed the complexion of the game. So I'm with you. I thought that Jernigan has been one of the standouts on this defense ever since Week 1.
And I think one of the things that you saw today, too, on a larger picture is, look, we're not down on the field, and I'm not saying the Giants weren't trying. That's all I'm saying. But I think you saw on that fourth down play at the end of the half where they went for it from 5 inches out. I think you saw how much the Eagles just completely overmatched them there. I mean, they got him 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, which is tough to do when you only have 5 inches to go.
And Vinny Curry did it. I mean, for all that we talked, when we talked about all spring and all of summer during training camp about, Vinny Curry, when's he going to step up? There was a bad contract by Howie Roseman, and it probably doesn't change that conversation. But for him to burst through the line and blow up, I believe it was Orleans Darkwa in the backfield, to blow that play up, that was a huge play. And if the Giants score there at the end of the half after Doug's 4th and 8 decision, that changes the game because the Giants get the ball back at the start of the second half. They go into the locker room with some momentum. So huge play from Vinny Curry, and I don't think the defense can get enough credit for that stop.
And I think it's what I was going to say was it's hard to sometimes quantify what Doug brings to this team in terms of emotional intelligence and open heart and all those things Jeffrey Lurie talked about. But today I did think you saw the difference between Doug Peterson's team came to play. They didn't play great, but they played hard. They didn't put their head down. I thought the Giants didn't look like a team that was playing as hard as Eagles. I thought that the Eagles looked like the team that wanted it more today, and I think you saw that by the fact that even when they fell behind late, they fought back, they got the job done, didn't make a ton of dumb penalties. I mean, the Malcolm Jenkins one on Odell late down the sideline was not a good one, but you look at the Giants, Odell gets that personal foul, the flag in the end zone for celebrating. They had that play where the Giants center held Elijah Qualls towards the end of the game. It was a 15-yard penalty. I mean, the Giants really kicked themselves in the foot a lot, or shot themselves in the foot a lot of times. So I thought this was a good game for Doug, actually. I think it kind of showed the difference between him and McAdoo, and then maybe, which is something you probably wouldn't have said at this time last year, they did get the right coach. So I thought it was a huge win for Doug. Again, 2-1 in the division. So Big win. Obviously, all right, so we talked about the defense. I want to talk about Wentz a little more in the passing game. And let's talk about Alshon, too, because I didn't think Alshon had a very good game. I know he got deep and Wentz missed him on that touchdown that should have been inexcusable miss by Wentz. If you're any quarterback, but especially if you're going to be a franchise quarterback, in a game like this where your team needs to win, you have to make that throw where he misses him down the sideline, overthrows him about 5 yards. That might have been one of the worst throws I've seen Wentz make since he's been drafted when you consider the situation and what could have been.
Yeah, and then the problem is, Eliot, and I'm not going to sit here and limit Carson Wentz to being a dink-and-dunk quarterback, but I will say this. He has to improve on the deep ball. He missed Alshon Jeffrey deep in that spot. He missed Torrey Smith about 4 yards out of bounds on what had the chance to be another big play down the field on a deep passing attempt. This hasn't been the strength of Carson Wentz's game since he's been here, and it really hasn't been his strength of the first 3 games of this season.
No, it hasn't. So not a good game from Wentz. Alshon didn't come up. Let's talk about reasons to be encouraged, though. What were some things you saw today that make you feel better about this team than you did before the game started?
Well, I think the defense showed you a lot. They showed you that you can come up big with their backs against the wall in big fourth down opportunities. I'm encouraged by that. Big picture, I'm encouraged that Carson Wentz was able to put together a drive down the field to tie the game and a drive down the field to win the game. He was 3 of 7, I believe it was, passing on the setup drive to kick the field goal to tie the game. To do that twice in the fourth quarter when he really hadn't had that moment before, that's almost an early career-defining moment for me in a division game. So I'm encouraged there. I'm encouraged by the play of the defensive line. I thought they played exceptionally well today. If you want to talk about discouraged, left guard's still an absolute mess. I wrote this in the analysis.
Chance Warmack was terrible today.
He gave up 2 sacks in the first quarter to the point where they pulled him for putting in Stefan Wisniewski. Then they rotated back and forth, and on Warmack's first snap back in the game, he misses a block that winds up being the tackler on a LeGarrette Blount run. So a bad performance from Chance Warmack, who was as big a liability in pass protection as we thought he'd be. And Isaac Seumalo wasn't part of that left guard rotation, so I think that's interesting. Big picture, I think the line is still the biggest concern, and I don't know that I feel great about this secondary if these injuries linger.
Yeah, so for me, I was encouraged by 2 things. You already mentioned the defense line, so I'll stay away from that. I was encouraged by the running game. I mean, look, like I said, the Giants do not have a good defensive line when it comes to stopping the run. Coming into this game, they were, I think, 4th worst in the league against the run. So the Eagles should have been able to run the ball against this team. But you know what? They did it. They did. They came out. They dominated 193 yards. Doug, and again, this is why I think the criticism of Doug for not running the ball against the Chiefs was stupid, because they couldn't run the ball against the Chiefs. But you saw today, when the running game is working and they feel going into the game that they have the ability to run the ball, Doug's going to do it. So, look, not every team is going to have the Chiefs' defense. The Eagles are going to play teams this year that have bad run defenses. And I think you saw today that they have the ability to take over and run the ball when they have to. And that's huge because, as you've mentioned, you don't need Wentz throwing the ball 45, 50 times every game. And I think today you saw his arm got a little bit of a rest. And again, I think, you said it, but Carson Wentz getting that game-winning drive, to me, was big. I didn't think he played well, as I mentioned, but the thing I've said time and time again about Wentz is nothing rattles this guy, whether it's pressure in the pocket, whether it's an interception, whether it's, falling behind. Wentz is always even-keeled, and I think that really, the team picks up on that. When Bradford was the quarterback and they had, quarterbacks shuffling in and out, you could see this team kind of folded easier. I think with Wentz as their leader, voted as a captain, quarterback of the team, I think you can see that they rebound better. I mean, this team doesn't get as rattled. When they got this game, though it was going to go to overtime, but even when they got this game to the fact that it was about to go to overtime, I was even surprised by that because we've seen them lose this game time and time again.
Yep.
We've seen them, look ugly at home, and then they fall behind, and all the fans are mad. It really felt like in that third quarter and really most of the fourth, the fans here were just waiting to drown this team with boos.
And before that, I don't think the offense played very well in the first half. They couldn't get the ball moving, and it wasn't until that second drive when LeGarrette Blount had a 13-yard run that it seemed to spark the offense a little bit. And that's what, when we talk about them needing to run the ball, more, I think you needed them to run the ball more effectively early. Yeah. Because once you had the Giants kind of playing back on their heels, it opened things up a little bit for the run game and the passing game alike. So if you can replicate this game plan where you can go into a game and you can run the ball, 45% of the times that you pass it in the first quarter and build on that throughout, and you find out what's working and follow the game plan that way, I think that's the recipe for success for this team. But, Eliot, they have to cut down on these fourth-quarter turnovers. The Ertz turnover today led to the Giants touchdown. Last week it was the Carson Wentz interception that led to the Travis Kelce touchdown. You can't consistently – you're good enough to beat a bad Giants team, and now 0-3 Giants team in the division surviving fourth-quarter turnovers. When you start playing the Oakland Raiders or the Cowboys late in the year, or even a team like Arizona coming in here in a big spot, you can't afford to turn the football over against good football teams late in the game and expect to be able to overcome those things.
No, I agree. And look, I think what you saw today about the Eagles, too, is this is a team that's capable of winning when they're not playing at their best. And when's the last time we could say that about this team? I mean, haven't won a playoff game since 2008. Haven't made the playoffs since 2013. This team they don't win these type of games. So I think to see them come out here, have your quarterback play poorly, to be so banged up, to be playing a desperate team, I don't think, you were probably right. I didn't make enough of the fact that the Giants were desperate. But you saw they're out there today. The Giants obviously needed this win, and the Eagles still got the job done. So I think this was a very encouraging win for the Eagles on a number of levels.
Yep.
But just because, second-year quarterbacks, second-year head coaches, playing against a team led by a guy that's won 2 Super Bowls, you're not supposed to win this game. This isn't a game where, I think they're too early in the rebuild to consistently win this type of game. So I was impressed by that. So
I agree.
Now they're 2-1, 2-0 in the division, and a great place 3 weeks into the season. Head to the Chargers next week.
And depending what the Cowboys do tomorrow night against the Cardinals, you could be in the driver's seat of the division after the first 3 games, and you go out to L.A. next week and you play a team that you match up fairly well against. And we'll get into that later in the week, but this is the type of game that I think springboards you into what after next week becomes one of the more manageable portions of the entire schedule.
And if you think about it, when we did our season preview, we both thought they were going to start off slow.
Yep.
So now you're standing 2-1 with really 2 impressive wins and 1 win. Your loss, you could have won. So I think they played very well against a tough schedule to start the season. Even though the NFC East doesn't seem like it's going to be as good as people thought, division games are always tough. So the fact that they pulled this off is very impressive. We're going to wrap this up here. We got plenty to do off of this win. As always, tweet us your reaction to the game. We want to hear your hot takes. What did you like? What did you not like? And we'll discuss them on Tuesday's show with Joe Giglio. So tweet us at #TheNoHuddleShow or email us at TheNoHuddleShow@NJ.com. We read everyone, and we're going to make sure we read them on Tuesday, and we'll talk about it. Go subscribe to the podcast. We're on all different platforms, iTunes, Google Play, all those different things. We'll put them in the description. So we're going to get out of here. My head's still spinning a little bit off of this win. So I look forward to writing about it, and I'll talk to you Tuesday.
Sounds good, Eliot. Should be a good week.
All right.